5th. You're back in the Finance Committee. It is a voting session, and we're going to start with Lisa, I think, Senate Bill 53.
Senate Bill 53, as amended, requires the Maryland Port Administration to provide written notice to the Anne Arundel County delegation to the General Assembly when the administration requests written approval from Anne Arundel County to acquire land or interest in land in the county. There are two amendments. Amendment 1 adds Senator Guile, Henson, and Lamb as co-sponsors. Amendment 2 strikes the provisions of the bill as introduced and amends the bill as specified. There is no fiscal impact.
Move favorable, as amended.
Second.
All in favor of Senate Bill 53 as amended? Aye. Unanimous vote. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Senate Bill 428. Senate Bill 428 prohibits the Maryland Department of Health, as well as insurers, nonprofit health service plans, and health maintenance organizations from imposing a co-payment, co-insurance, or deductible requirement on coverage services provided in accordance with the collaborative care model.
No amendments?
No amendments.
Move favorable.
Second.
All in favor of Senate Bill 428? You're down? Okay. I think you need to call the roll, Tammy. Please.
Senate Bill 428, favorable. Vice Chair Hayes.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Kramer.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Reedy.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Mounts.
No.
No. Senator Jackson.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Washington. Yes. Senator Guile.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Hershey.
Yeah.
Yes. Madam Chair.
Need a second. Yes.
Yes.
8-1, bill passes.
This is.
Next is Senate Bill 473. We discussed this one 2 weeks ago, but then ended up holding it. The amendments are substantially the same as when we discussed them last, but there are a few technical changes. So I guess we can just discuss it over again. Senate Bill 473 requires an applicant for a local taxi cab driver's license, state for-hire driver's license, or state transportation network operator license to include in the license application documentation verifying that the applicant completed a human trafficking awareness program and a human trafficking prevention program, and specifies that licensed taxi cab drivers, for-hire drivers, or transportation network operators may not be held civilly or criminally liable for reporting or responding in good faith to a suspected incident of human trafficking. There's two amendments for which you have a reprint. They were requested by the sponsor, and Uber has approved them. On pages 4 and 6 of the reprint, the amendment alters the requirements of the human trafficking awareness training to include information on how to report suspected incidents of human trafficking to appropriate authorities. That provision is put in for the for-hire and taxi cab drivers on page 4 and for the transportation network operators on page 6. Also on page 6, the bill amends the provisions as they apply to transportation network operators. It prohibits a transportation network operator to use a transportation network services application to provide rides unless the applicant has completed the specified human trafficking training within 30 days of providing their first ride. And it also allows transportation network operators who applied for or received a license before the effective date of the act and completed the required training that meets the requirements between June 1st, 2025 and November 30th, 2026, they would be exempt from these requirements.
Motion favorable? Senator Mounts, do I have a second? Second is Senator Hayes. All in favor of Senate Bill 473? Is that a unanimous vote? Okay, unanimous vote, thank you. Okay, yes,
I made a big mistake.
okay. Okay. Can Tammy still fix it, 428?
I will fix it for Senator Mounts.
That's what Tammy does.
I understand.
Thank you, Tammy.
Just don't do it again.
You're allowed one mistake a session, that's it.
What do you have to do on the floor?
I think Senate Bill 521, was there someone that was going to hold 521?
Sure, I hope I can.
Okay, Senator Washington held 521, okay. Senate Bill 585,
Senate Bill 585 requires the Maryland Department of Agriculture instead of the Maryland Department of Health to collect already required contributions from specified research facilities. As a result, the Secretary of Agriculture instead of the Secretary of Health must distribute the monies collected to the Human Relevant Research Fund administered by the Maryland Technology Development Corporation. There are no amendments.
do I have a motion for Senate Bill 585? Yes, you may.
I understand we're getting somebody else to collect the money, but it feels wrong to take it from the health department when we're dealing with medical research that's going to impact humans. I've never been super comfortable with this whole fund anyway, in the interest of full disclosure, but like why? I'm just concerned, even though it's just collecting the money, is it just collecting the money or is it other parts of enforcement or?
It's just collecting the money.
And does that constitute, does the bill raise the fee associated with, because they're assigning like thousands and thousands of dollars in fees on people who are doing work with different quantities of animals? Or is it just switching it over?
Yeah, so it's switching it over, and I guess the expense came from the fact that MDH had the existing personnel to absorb the workload, but MDA doesn't. I believe their testimony was that MDH just didn't have the expertise or wasn't familiar with the stakeholders that were receiving the money, and agriculture was more familiar with that.
Okay, that makes sense, but I'm curious about on page 2 that at the beginning, on or before January 15th each year, beginning in 2024, this is all new language. Each research facility that's located in the state is required to submit an animal, plant, and health inspection service form 723, shall pay the department a contribution in the amount of, and then it has 5,000 for up to 100 animals, 10,000 for up to 100, 55,000 for more. That's all new language. I'm curious, is that a new fee? Is that a raised fee for that permit, or is that just new because it's in a new part of the statute?
Yeah, it's new because it's in a new article. It wasn't the health.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion for Senate Bill 585?
So moved.
Thank you, Senator Hayes. Do I have a second? Senator Hayes was the. Senator Kramer. Okay. All in favor of Senator Gazzoni's bill, Senate Bill 585? Senator Washington, you, okay? Okay. Who's out?
It's a pardon.
It's, okay.
Oh.
It's 8-1. Senator Reedy's voting no. No, he had his hand up. Senator Hershey had his hand up. Yep.
If there's 7, I know who they are.
All right, Senate Bill 606.
Senate Bill 606 requires the Maryland Transportation Authority to submit a report on Easy Pass commuter and discount plans to the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee and the House Appropriations Committee. The report must analyze and provide specified data from calendar year 2023, 24, and 25, and include recommendations for lowering the amount of unused commuter trips. If during calendar 23, 24, or 25, more than 25% of all Easy Pass discount plans have unused commuter trips, the report must also include a corrective action plan to reduce or eliminate the forfeiture of unused commuter trips and mitigate consumer harm. There are no amendments.
Co-sponsor.
We all want to co-sponsor? Is this a pile on? Yeah. Pile on. All right, that's a unanimous vote. Okay. Senator Jackson's bill 637.
Senate Bill 637 repeals the minimum commission rate of 10% of the total premium that the Maryland Automobile Insurance Fund must pay to an insurance producer that issues insurance policies on behalf of the fund. There are 2 amendments. Amendment 1 is technical, and Amendment 2 sets the minimum commission rate at 5% rather than eliminating the minimum entirely, and additionally prohibits the Maryland Automobile Insurance Fund from paying commission on a policy written directly by the fund.
All in favor of Senate Bill 637? Oh, wait a minute, I need a motion. Senator Gall, your hand was raised for the motion. Who's the second? Senator Jackson's the second. Did you have a question?
I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
So, thank you. So this would authorize MAFE sort of authorize MAVE to discount broker commissions completely?
If they want it.
Yeah, so they're already in current law that they're allowed to do commissions that are not less than 10% and not exceeding 15%, and this would just change that from 5% to 15% and also eliminate it on policies if MAFE writes it directly without a broker being involved.
And I'm sure the brokers testified against that, didn't they?
Well, that was an amendment, so that provision wasn't in the bill initially. Or do you mean that they testified against eliminating the minimum commission?
Eliminating I would imagine, I'm trying to
I'm gonna look it up
recollect
right
that
now
hearing.
for you.
Yeah, the independent insurance agents were unfavorable on the original bill as introduced.
Did we get any feedback from them after the amendment or no? It's okay, we didn't.
No.
Can I just share something? There is a sense that policies are being written in MAFE that could be written in other standard companies, and that agents aren't working hard enough to place these folks into the standard companies. And so if they don't earn as much commission, maybe they'll put people in standard companies.
They don't.
Okay.
Yeah, like if, yeah, you reduce, and then, right now, what happens is MAFE writes the policies directly, and then pays commission to an agent and transfers the policy to an agent. Now, that agent did nothing, but they now have the policy,
Understood.
yeah. So we're just trying to encourage, you're supposed to be turned down by 2 companies before you're written in MAFE. No one's quite sure that that's happening. So. What?
Good bill.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of Senate Bill 637? Senator Washington? Yes, no? You're on. Okay, thank you. Okay, Senate Bill 740.
Senate Bill 740 requires a transportation network company to maintain and apply a written deactivation policy that provides the policies and procedures for the deactivation of transportation network operators, including an internal appeals procedure. An operator may file a complaint with the Public Service Commission or bring a civil action for a violation of the deactivation appeal requirements. There are 2 amendments. Amendment 1 is technical, and Amendment 2 strikes the bill as introduced and substitute language that removes provisions related to the Public Service Commission and alters the requirements of the specified deactivation policy, notice, and appeals procedure. The amendment also allows deactivated drivers to withdraw earnings that accrued prior to the deactivation and limits the circumstances under which an operator may be deactivated based solely on a passenger report. Did you want to? We were going to, but we were going.
But you got it straight.
Yeah, B&T. Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a motion on Senate Bill 740?
Move favorable.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
So Senator Kramer and Senator Hayes, all in favor of Senate Bill 740? It's unanimous vote. Okay.
Okay, Senate Bill 803 authorizes the holder of a Class 3 winery license to acquire bulk wine from the holder of a Class 4 limited winery license and authorizes the holder of a Class 4 limited winery license to sell and deliver bulk wine to the holder of a Class 3 winery license. There are 2 amendments. Amendment 1 is technical, and Amendment 2 authorizes a Class 4 limited winery to manufacture and bottle a specified amount of pomace brandy distilled from wine produced by the same winery, provided that the brandy is less than 80 proof and made from at least 51% Maryland-grown agricultural products. The amendments also specify that all pomace brandy distilled and bottled by the license holder shall be reported as a distilled spirit for purposes of the tax general article. There is no fiscal impact.
Can I have a motion on Senate Bill 803? Senator Reedy, do I have a second? Senator Mounts. All in favor of Senate Bill 803? Okay, unanimous vote. Thank you.
Is it okay if we go to my other one on the other calendar? Did you want to go with that order?
No, you can go. You got another one on another calendar?
Yeah, on the next vote, on loading list number 8, there is Senate Bill 626.
There's a second calendar. Senate Bill 626 is Lisa.
It's right.
The one that has 3.
Okay, that's okay. I had to look too.
Okay. This bill repeals the requirement that a licensed healthcare practitioner determines an individual's sex designation should be changed for the purposes of issuing a new birth certificate. Instead, an individual or their parent, guardian, or legal representative must make a written request under penalty of perjury to the Maryland Department of Health for a new birth certificate with a sex designation that differs from the original birth certificate. When issuing a new birth certificate, the Secretary of Health must allow an individual to designate the sex of the individual as female, male, or unspecified or another. If an individual indicates unspecified or another, the Secretary must ensure the new birth certificate displays an X in the location that indicates the individual's sex. The bill alters the sex designation option of other to another on the application for the license, identification card, or moped operator's permit, and the bill alters provisions regarding a new birth certificate issued due to a name change of a parent listed on the birth certificate. There are no amendments.
Move favorable.
Senator Hayes, Senator Lamb. I think we're gonna call,
It's a party.
yeah, we're gonna call roll.
So can I just clarify one thing?
Yep,
This is for birth certificates.
For the most part, but the provisions that alter the designation from other to another apply to license, identification cards, and moped operator permit. But the rest of the bill is just birth certificates.
Okay. I still don't understand, just for the record, birth certificate is how you were born. It's a historic document and record. So this is letting you, I understand changing your sex on driver's license. I've never understood why, I just don't think it makes a lot of sense to change your birth certificate. So that's just me saying I'm against the bill.
well, considering that we might have to have our birth certificate to vote, if this bill passes the federal government, you better have your sex right on your birth certificate, or you're not gonna be able to register to vote. Senator Lamb,
Yeah, I mean, there are other instances too where, let's say, child, or I guess at that point adult, has a birth certificate. Their parent may have changed their gender identity, and thus changed their name. And so, you want that information to also match when it comes to their ID, right? And so, this will allow them to update the parent's name on the birth certificate also.
I'm sorry, you said. So we had a motion and a second, I think we better call the roll.
Madam Chair, just a quick question. This is already allowed on a driver's license or identification card, right?
Senator Lamb,
I believe so. I think maybe what was missed here were these certain other licenses for like mopeds and whatnot that weren't
Yeah, so
updated.
with
That's a very
those,
minor
it's
part of the bill.
Yeah, I
Yeah, it's
know.
already allowed, but it currently says other, and it's changing it to another instead of other for the term they use.
But that's a choice that somebody makes when they go to file for that type of license or identification card, right? If we pass, that you can say on that license or identification card, I'm a female, a male, or another, or at least at this part, other. That's already done, right? But I think in agreeing with what Senator Reedy said, as you go forward, if you want to make that change, that's fine. That's something that you are going and applying for. But this is going back and altering a birth certificate?
They would have to request the alteration. They're not doing it on their own. I mean, the department's not doing it.
No,
Yeah.
but I mean, somebody would go back and say that even though, the doctors, assessed that when I was born a male, somebody's now going back and saying, and as Senator Reedy said, you're essentially changing history and saying that, no, I'm going back and saying that I was born something different than that? I mean, is that what the bill essentially does, Senator?
It allows them to request from the Department of Health a new birth certificate that could include a gender identification to which they currently choose.
What they currently choose. But again, you're not going back. For instance, you have, parent, a father and a mother when you're born. 20 years down the road, you might have a different father or something. You're not going back and changing a birth certificate and say, well, this person is now my father. and I want to change my birth certificate. I mean, you're going back and changing something that occurred at the time you were born.
But I think you can currently change your gender on a birth certificate, right? Is that to counsel?
On a birth certificate?
This would remove the need for
The
you to go to a
doctor.
doctor to have that.
Yeah, you currently can, but you do have to go provide, I think, an attestation from a physician that you were changed your sex or were born intersex.
And so now, so if this were to pass, you do not have to go to a doctor anymore to have that signed off on. You would sign under penalty of perjury that you have, that your gender identification is different.
You're signing under penalty of perjury that you are identifying now differently, or that you were, when you were born and the birth certificate was issued, that you're saying they made the wrong assessment and now that something's different?
I don't think it's going back and trying to relitigate.
Well, that's what a
like,
birth certificate
the
is, though.
Provider's like assessment at the time. But
Right, but that's what a birth certificate is, documenting what happened on a certain day.
It makes no judgment on that provider's decision as to whether or not they were assigned male, female, or other gender. But there are instances where someone could be diagnosed with the wrong gender too, at birth. Those have been documented by providers, yes.
Correct, and that was what you said, you had to have a doctor agree to that. This is removing the physician from making that determination, and you're making that on your own now.
Usually there are, when someone is going through the process of having their gender identified correctly, the provider could be doing some assessment, some exam. It just removes the requirement for the provider now to have to sign off on this. That the individual would sign under penalty of perjury, that their gender designation is now different.
Under penalty of perjury, that's
Right.
interesting. Well, yeah, I mean, all right. Not in agreement with this one, Madam Chair, but thank you very much.
I want to hold this.
Yeah.
There's too many other bills we need to do today. I'm going to ask to hold it. Okay, Lisa, that finishes you. Who's next? Nathan?
All right, up first, Senate Bill 348. This is one where I dropped off on top of some of your desks the new reprint. And so if you're looking at the reprint of Senate Bill 348, at the top you should see that it was generated on 3/5/26 at 2:31 p.m. So Senate Bill 348, as amended and shown in the reprint, allows a hospital or freestanding birthing center to contact, rather than only call, a birthing parent following delivery after a high-risk pregnancy, allowing the facility to utilize other methods to contact a birthing parent. And so the amendment strikes the changes to the time frame in which that contact must occur, and then authorizes the alternative methods of communications. As I've described, there's no fiscal impact, and I'll also note that as amended, some of the unfavorable positions have changed. The College of Nurse Midwives is neutral. ACOG, the obstetricians and gynecologists, are in favor.
Senator Gall?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I chatted with Nathan already separately about this bill, and respect the bill sponsor, absolutely. But I do continue to have some concerns about this. When you change from call to contact, I understand that MHA gave testimony that this would allow them to contact the birthing parent in whatever preferred manner that they had requested. And I don't know if that's like when they first registered ever with that particular hospital, with that provider. I mean, it could be, your preferred communication maybe through like the parent-patient portal. And I don't think that when we talk about, maternal health outcomes, that is what the intent is of like contacting them. I'm concerned that that box may be checked by just communicating through that. I just don't think that is the same as a call. And to check in, especially these are high-risk pregnancies, and I understand that they're saying that they're not answering the phone, but there may be times when they're actually reaching somebody, and that actually may do some good. And I still have strong reservations and concerns about this bill. I'm not, I'm a no on it as it is, but I mean, and I don't know if it makes sense to, have an opportunity. I mean, I understand and appreciate that ACOG now is favorable. I don't know, to have a further conversation with them or the midwives, but I just wanted to say that I still have strong concerns about this bill. I mean, we're trying to do what we can to improve maternal health outcomes in the state of Maryland, and I understand the concerns that were raised, but I think it's walking it back. So that's what I have to say. Thank you. Thank you, Madam
Senator
Chair.
Jackson?
Thanks, Madam Chair. So in the testimony, we spoke about Safe Baby, Safe Moms program in DC, which showed a 67% engagement rate when texting was done, and that was within 72 hours compared to a 39% engagement rate with only phone calls here in Maryland. So that was some data that we had to look forward to in terms of changing from just calling to diversifying the way the patients would be contacted.
I appreciate that, but this doesn't say like texting. This says just contacting. And they suggested the possibility of even and like I've said before, I mean, I've accessed the patient portal before, but going through the steps of logging in. If I got some notification that an email or a letter or some notification was uploaded to the patient portal, and I was a new mom, I wouldn't be logging in to check it. I would just assume it's something. I just wouldn't look at it. I think it's a lot different than a call. I don't know how I feel necessarily about a text, but I just have really strong concerns about this.
Senator Jackson?
Sorry to go back and forth, but I think we're trying to give our hospitals some flexibility here with regards to contacting patients that's in this risk pool. And like I said, we have a program here in DC, although texting is one form of communication, there are others. And if someone preferred contact is the portal, then I would think they would check the portal if there was a communication there. So.
Senator Lamb? You what? Okay, Senator Lamb moved favorable, Senator Hayes second. I think we're gonna call the roll.
Senate Bill 348, favorable with amendment. Vice Chair Hayes?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Kramer?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Reedy?
I've been swayed by the argument. I'm going to say no. If we could say call and text, I might feel different, but I'm going to say no.
No. Senator Reedy is a no. Senator Mounts?
I'm a no also.
No. Senator Jackson?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Washington?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Guile? No. No. Senator Lamb?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Hershey?
No, ma'am.
No. Madam Chair?
Yes?
Yes.
6-4.
6-4, the bill passes.
That's the only reason I did it, Senator Jackson.
But hey, can I just say something real quickly? I assume somebody from MHA may be watching or listening. Make sure, that the intent of what we passed before is fulfilled. If I can just say that. Please don't be just checking the box on contacting them. And I mean, I don't know when they determine the patient's preference on communication, but if it's later, just to, not at the very beginning when they're enrolled as a patient, just do your due diligence. Do your diligence on it.
Leave the hospital, right?
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Next bill on the list is Senate Bill 492, which as amended and shown in the reprint prohibits a licensed massage therapist, registered massage practitioner, or a third party from advertising for massage therapy services, one, stating that prostitution, escort, or sexual services are available, two, on a website known for advertising prostitution, escort, or sexual services, or three, indicating or implying that sexual activity is part of the massage service. And so regulations adopted by the board must define specific prohibited language and content and establish procedures for reporting violations. The amendments that are shown in the reprint and on pages 2 and 3, they strike provisions requiring practitioners to post their full name and license number on advertisements that had presented some privacy concerns, instead requiring that if an advertisement includes a practitioner's name, that name must match the name on the license or registration issued by the board in order to facilitate license verification by the person who wanted to look up that practitioner. And then finally, the amendment also allows additional time after the bill's effective date to bring physical signs and billboards into compliance. The board supports these amendments that are being offered by the chair.
Have a motion?
Second.
Senator Motz and Senator Reed, all in favor of Senate Bill 562. I'm sorry, 492. Unanimous vote, thank you.
Next is Senate Bill 562, which, as amended and shown in the reprint, adds requirements applicable to when a pharmacist enters into a prescriber-pharmacist agreement to treat opioid use disorder using controlled dangerous substances. And so a pharmacist may enter into an agreement if the pharmacist, one, individually registers with both the Maryland Office of Controlled Substances Administration and the Federal Drug Enforcement Agency, two, completes any required training, and then three, follows a specified protocol. A protocol authorizing CDS drug therapy must require the pharmacist to request relevant data from the prescription drug monitoring program before initiating or modifying CDS drug therapy. And also the bill repeals requirements for a prescriber who enters into a prescriber pharmacist agreement to submit a copy of the agreement and any subsequent modifications to the Health Occupations Board that regulates the prescriber. And so then the amendment that's being offered by Senator Guile authorizes a licensed certified midwife who already has prescriptive authority under current law to participate in therapy management contracts in the same fashion as other authorized prescribers.
Have a motion for Senate Bill.
Move favorable to amendment.
Senator Guile, favorable, who's second? Senator Kramer, all in favor of Senate Bill 562. Unanimous vote. Okay.
Next bill is Senate Bill 773, which authorizes a pharmacist to order a vaccine for an individual who is at least 3 years old without the pharmacist administering the vaccine. If a vaccination is administered to an individual younger than 18 or ordered for administration by an adult caregiver to an individual younger than 18, then the pharmacist must inform the patient and the adult caregiver of the importance of visits with a pediatric primary care provider and refer the patient to a pediatric primary care provider when appropriate. There are no amendments and there is no fiscal impact.
Have a motion on Senate Bill 773. Somebody has a question.
Yeah, so what this can you just explain again what this bill does so I make sure I understand?
So instead of, under current law, a pharmacist is expected to administer the vaccination. Under the bill, they can order the vaccination and it can be sent to the home of the individual who's receiving the vaccination. My understanding is that this relates to a new type of nasal mist vaccine that's being offered by AstraZeneca. And so that vaccine will be shipped to the home and then can be administered by a parent for someone under the age of 18, or can be self-administered.
But there's no restriction that it's a nasal vaccine. It can be any vaccine.
The bill does not specifically require it, but that nasal mist vaccine is the only one to my understanding, that is FDA approved for administration by the individual and not required to be administered by a healthcare professional.
Thank you, you've answered my questions.
Madam Chair, I think there are a few other.
I was going to ask one question about the terminology in the bill. I didn't see, it's or ordered for administration by an adult caregiver.
Yes.
I don't see caregiver defined. Is it defined somewhere else in statute?
So that term is actually already used in current law. If you look in line 21 of page 2, it refers to the child vaccination patient or adult caregiver. So that, to my knowledge, is not specifically defined, but that is the language that's used under the current authorization for pharmacist-administered vaccinations.
That's good to see, and I assume that takes place in other parts of the code?
I believe
Probably.
so. And it is used in regulation related to this program.
Okay, the one question I have is now we're talking about sending something home with a caregiver rather than legal guardian relative. And I understand caregiver could be the aunt is looking out for him or the uncle or whatever. So, I mean, I get that, but there's something about this I don't like. I don't like that it's kind of open-ended. It's only there's no real definition here. And I understand there's only one thing on the market right now, but there's going to be more, and there's going to be more things. I'm sure this is not the first time. This won't be the last time we have a nasal spray of some kind of vaccination. So I mean, I'm just concerned, but I am glad to know. I was curious what the definition of caregiver was. I've grown uncomfortable. We just had another bill about pharmacists, but it's for opioid use disorder. So I thought it's okay to support something like that, but I'm not 100% comfortable with some of the scope of practice stuff we get into with pharmacists and pharmacies doing more and more things that are, now in this case, they administer vaccines, so I understand that they administer vaccines. I wasn't real thrilled with some of that either, but depending on what it was. But anyway, I just have concerns about that.
Senator Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The vaccine in question is really just a flu vaccine. So you probably all heard of flu mist. Flu mist up until this point has to be administered either at the pharmacy or at a doctor's office. We now have probably over 10 years of data on flu mist and its safety profile. So this is to allow flu mist to actually be shipped directly to the patient who's requesting it, so that they can self-administer the flu mist, or I guess in the instance of a minor, that the parent could administer the flu mist to them too. The flu vaccine is the only vaccine that can be done nasally. There is nothing on the horizon that would allow, you to just blow something through the nose and then you get vaccinated. It's only for flu, right? And so there's nothing else there that is of concern with this. All other vaccines have to be administered by a shot.
Is this only?
So this is really just for convenience of, for these individuals that want to get a flu vaccine and they don't like shots, they don't have to go into a pharmacy or to a doctor's office to get flu mist. Flu mist can be just mailed to them, and it's very simple, just nasal spray.
And is this bill only vaccine? It's only for a vaccine, though, correct? So we're not saying you can because that's the only thing they administer at a pharmacist, right? So it's just for you're saying it's just for the flu vaccine. Let me ask this question. People get sick doing the flu mist. I mean, for a while. So we're doing this at home. I just feel like it's kind of crossing a little bit of a shallow Rubicon, but a Rubicon. So, but I appreciate that explanation. That is good to know that it's more limited than it sounded like. Is there any sort of liability that's absorbed by an adult caregiver for administering a flu mist? Or flu vaccines or not? There's no liability for flu vaccine. You can't sue a flu vaccine manufacturer.
There is a national fund that's set up for any instances of adverse reactions to vaccines. I presume that in this instance, if someone
would be covered by that.
They could still, follow the claim with the National, Vaccine Adverse Event Fund.
We're talking about the flu vaccine. I understand it's not quite the same as some of the others, but people do get adverse reactions. Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, and
Google says The adverse reactions are a runny, stuffy nose, sore throat, headache, fever, cough, and muscle aches, which is kind of the mild flu symptoms. It's not hives or, anything like that, but anyway. Senator
I think my questions have been answered.
I guess, would there be any opportunity to amend this just to limit it to a nasal vaccine? I just say that because, one of the one of the big bills we've heard this year is the Governor's Vax Act. Hear about all this vaccination discussion, and then, I want to vote for it, but I have reservations about not having a limitation. I get that it's for the nasal spray. Would it be a problem if we were to amend it and just have it be for a nasal spray vaccination?
I think, just to add information for the body to consider, this nasal mist vaccine is the only one that is FDA approved for this home use. I think critically, the vaccine has to be approved by the FDA for administration in that way. That is contemplated by the legislation as it's currently structured. So it would not be eligible for a pharmacist may not order to someone's home a vaccination that is not FDA approved for at-home administration.
Boy, I tell you, that's good. I think Senator Mounts' amendment, if we would be able to put something in there that clarifies it, I think that would get an 11-0 vote out of here. Well, I guess it'd be a 10-0 vote. But
recommended by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which are authorized by U.S. Food and Drug Administration. I think it refers to it every way except to say nasal vaccine, right?
The new language in Senate Bill 773 does not specify the method of administration. It is left entirely to the approved method of administration by the FDA. And so what I would say is that right now, this is the only one that is approved. But that the FDA in the future could conceivably, hypothetically, approve a different method of administration. I don't know if they could approve another vaccine that would be administered nasally, but to Senator Reedy's and Mounts's collective point, if I don't know the science behind transdermal vaccinations, but were the bill to be amended to be nasal mist only, it would preclude any other method that was approved by the FDA for the administration of a vaccination.
To Nathan's point, I guess, if we still believe the FDA is the gold standard, if the FDA is the gold standard, then, and the FDA has gone through a rigorous process to determine whether a vaccine should be allowed to be administered by an individual by themselves at home, why would we limit this bill to only one method of administration? Why not keep it open to anything that is FDA approved to be self-administered home? They're not going to approve of a shot that you have to self-administer into your leg. No one's going to want to do that, and so there's a safety issue with that. So FDA is only going to safely allow for self-administer at home because it's met a certain safety profile already.
Right. Do we have a motion and a second on this one yet? I don't think so. Senator Jackson motion. Who's going to second? Senator Lamb. All right.
Okay.
Can we call the roll? Sandy, please?
No amendments.
773. Senate Bill 773, favorable. Vice Chair Hayes?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Kramer?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Reedy?
I'm going to stay no for now.
No. Senator Mounts? No. Senator Jackson? Yes. Senator Washington?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Guile?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Lamb?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Hershey?
I'm actually okay with it. I think it's pretty restrictive, so I'm all right.
Yes. Madam Chair? Yes. 8-2, the bill passes.
Up next.
Senator Lamb defending the FDA's honor.
Well, that's what, my wife works. My colleagues said, you need the gold standard.
Up next is Senate Bill 917, which clarifies the definition of practice audiology to include the conducting of health screenings and ordering and performing of certain in-office imaging of the external auditory canal, and then this is the critical part, quote, related to the auditory or vestibular conditions in the human ear. There are no amendments, there is no fiscal impact.
And Senator Lamb, did you second? All in favor of Senate Bill 917?
I'm gonna vote no on it, so you can. I just, you know, just put me down as a no.
So that one no?
I'm no.
Other noes?
I'll join my colleague.
Sorry.
Hit your,
Senator Lamb?
Madam Chair, Madam Chair.
Let's call the roll, Tammy.
Hold on, what does this bill do?
It's just, it's just been like made of my existence.
Senator Bob did a bill a couple years ago that got a lot of pushback, and she didn't want to talk about all the.
I don't wanna talk about it again.
Oh, okay. So can you tell me what this, so what does, I wasn't here.
She don't want to talk about it.
Is this limits where they?
Would you like me? I can, okay. So the bill relates to the scope of practice of audiologists in the state. And so it is amending the definition of practice audiology to, in two instances, clarify that these actions that fall under the definition of practice audiology have to be related to auditory and vestibular conditions of the human ear. So to use the first change in the bill on page 2 at line 12, it says that the practice of audiology includes the conducting of health screenings, but the bill then further clarifies that those health screenings have to be related to auditory and vestibular conditions of the human ear. An identical change is made down on line 20, where the current definition of practice audiology talks about ordering and performing in-office non-radiographic scanning or imaging of the external auditory canal. It's the outer part of your ear canal. But then the bill goes on to specify as it relates to the auditory and vestibular conditions of the human ear. So non-radiographic imaging that was not related to the auditory or vestibular conditions of the human ear would fall outside of the definition of practice audiology.
We had a motion and a second, we can call the roll.
Senate Bill 917 favorable. Vice Chair Hayes. Yes. Senator Kramer.
I've got two
Yes.
more in the
Senator Reedy.
supplemental list.
Yes. Senator Mounts. Yes. Senator Jackson. Yes. Senator Washington. No. Senator Guile. No. Senator Lamb. I'm sorry.
Yes?
Yes. Senator Hershey.
No.
No. Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to jump to
7-3,
voting list.
bill
Oh,
passes.
I'm sorry, Tammy.
We're gonna jump to that extra page.
Yes.
Nathan's gonna continue with Senate Bill 390.
Two more bills from me, and then Amber will have a really long list. Yeah. No. Senate Bill 390, as amended, prohibits the Wacomico County Board of License Commissioners from newly issuing a Class A beer, wine, and liquor license to an establishment that already holds a Class B license. Class B licenses are generally restaurant licenses. So the board may not issue more than one Class A license in a councilmatic district, may not issue more than a total of 3 licenses in the county, and may not issue a license to an establishment with retail floor space of more than 3,500 square feet. So additionally, the bill specifies that the general prohibition against one person holding more than one license does not apply to a Class A beer, wine, and liquor license issued before the bill's effective date to a holder of a Class B license. So that protects people who are already currently holding the Class B and Class A licenses simultaneously. So the amendment establishes the limits on the number, location, and size of the licensed premises as I've described them, and reinstates the authorization for a Class A license holder to purchase liquor from, for retail sale from a wholesaler that is currently authorized in current law. There were brackets that struck out that provision on page 3 in line 5, and the amendment restores that language by striking those brackets.
And this is supported by the Comico County Senate.
Yes, and there is no fiscal impact.
I got a question. Is that,
Okay.
was this the bill when I think it was the NAACP representative was here and she was concerned about the expansion of alcohol licenses and she felt like the black community was not being heard with regards to this bill?
That is correct, that was the
That was it.
the group that opposed, and that is correct. Their testimony, the one thing that I will point to is that the amendments to the bill on page 2, in and around line 18, you'll see it strikes the brackets that removed 3 licenses in the county and restores that limitation of 3 licenses, and strikes the piece that said 1 license for each councilmatic district, which, as I recall, was one of the main points of contention. It was there are 6 councilmatic districts, and that would double the number of licenses that could be issued. So by removing that language and restoring the limit of 3 licenses, it addresses at least that part of the opposition to the number of licenses and the potential for, even though it's in 2 separate districts, it's located very close together. It restores the current limitation.
And so does the opposition feel,
I have not had communication with the opposition. So, but Senator Mouts, I believe, has some.
So this legislation is sort of clarifies what was done in the previous year, and there is opposition because it affects the dispensary business in Wacomico County. And that was done in the previous year. And it was a balanced transition. There isn't 100% consensus. There is local support at all local levels. But this legislation was very confusing because of the timeline for deadlines to request bills and the process for the locals to have hearings and to make changes. And they made several changes. So a lot of the opposition was based off of old testimony, just as was explained. But just to sort of summarize this for all the members, this doesn't expand anything. There will be no new licenses. The licenses that will go from Class B to Class A already exist. So there's no new businesses going into any neighborhoods. And the name of those licenses are Buster's Wine and Spirits on 1210 Nanticoke Road, which is, they barely have cell service in that area of Nanticoke Road. There's Hopper's Tap House, which is very close to Salisbury University. And then there's Cactus Taverna. Those both are on Salisbury Boulevard, which are both high retail areas that already exist. But this doesn't provide for any new licenses. It just says that it will enable these 3 licenses, which currently operate as restaurants, to be able to also to also have this Class A license. I apologize for the confusion for the committee. However, we had to have that local process because in that process, they also implemented restrictions, that size limit, which prevents these businesses from growing in size. So they're going to stay about the way they are. They're going to continue to do the business. They're just going to have this new Class A authority. I hope that helps.
so was, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Senator Mouse, I remember this bill, and not only was it the NAACP, but it was the local liquor board and several other people. There was way more opposition than it was favorable. So are you saying that all of that has been worked out and now everyone's on board?
Well, no, they're not testifying in support. There's still opposition. They would probably lobby to have the changes that were made in the previous year to go away. The testimony from the person who works with the dispensary system, they were actually testifying to an old version of the bill. And actually, counsel mentioned that, and when he was explaining the bill, as those criticisms were being rendered, it did not match the writing that's in the reprint. We had a reprint in our laptop for the hearing, but the general public didn't have access to that reprint.
But what about the local county liquor board control? Local, what is
They-
it,
they've-
Wycomico County?
Yeah, we have
Liquor
letters
Control
of support from all the local levels of authority. We have, I've got letters of support from the county.
Senator Mounts, while you're finding that, I think there's a clarification that needs to be made. The opposition, Senator Hayes, that I think you're looking at is from the Liquor Control Board, and that is distinct from the licensing board.
What's the difference?
The Liquor Control Board is responsible for the dispensary system.
Got you.
And
So
that's-
that's what you, when you said dispensaries, this is what you were referring to?
That's the Liquor Control Board, correct.
And so they've reversed their position?
They have not, they
I
don't
believe
have a
what
position.
Senator Mounts was saying was that their position is in opposition to this bill and the bill that passed last year that made changes moving the county away from the dispensary system.
What's the dispensary system?
So a limited number of counties have control through a dispensary system of the distribution of liquor. So hard alcohol, Montgomery County is, of course, the
Is it like a state store?
Correct.
county store. That's,
And that change was made because the restaurants were having a hard time. They wanted to be able to buy alcohol from wholesalers because they could get a better price. And there was a lot of support from that to bring that change about.
And the county council?
Support.
Move favorable.
with amendments.
Senator Hershey and Senator Reed.
Thank you.
All in favor of Senate Bill 390? Senator Washington went out, so it's 8-0.
No, I was gonna hold it, but it sounded like y'all wanna move it. I at least wanna just verify like all this.
So you want to,
So I'll be no for right now.
so 8 down.
And Jackson is, Senator Jackson is also no.
Let's call the roll, Tammy. This should help.
Senate Bill 390, favorable with amendment. Vice Chair Hayes? No. Senator Kramer?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Reedy?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Mounts?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Jackson? No. Senator Guile?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Lamb?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Hershey?
Yes.
Yes. Madam Chair?
Yes,
Yes.
7-2.
7-2.
Bill passes.
Up next is Senate Bill 846, which establishes,
Chair, may I ask that this be held just to let me look a little closer at what exactly the bill does?
Tammy, is that possible if we heard it?
No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the one where I,
Okay, you're asking to hold 846.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I'm sorry. 848. Okay.
Okay, the first bill on the list with my name next to it is Senate Bill 94. That's commercial law earned wage access. If you'll remember, we had an earned wage access authorization bill last year that the governor wrote a letter for. He did not sign the bill, but let it take effect, with the condition that the legislature would come back and remove tips. So that is what this departmental bill from the Department of Labor does. It prohibits consumer loan lenders, commercial loan lenders, and earned wage access providers from soliciting or receiving tips, and requires that any tip collected be returned within 7 days of receipt. Additionally, the bill requires disclosure to consumers that they are prohibited from soliciting or accepting tips as specified. The bill also makes conforming changes to reflect the prohibition on soliciting or collecting tips. There are 2 amendments, and you have a reprint of them in front of you. Amendment 1 on the first page is technical, and then the next amendment is displayed on page 3. It's striking language and cross-references to 12304, 12305, and 12316. It's not striking 121502 from current law, it's just striking it from the bill because that section's no longer being amended. And then in the back on pages 6 and 7, those cross-reference sections are actually written into the subtitle for the earned wage access subtitle to make sure that the language aligns to prevent ambiguity. Earned wage access uses words like consumer and provider, whereas consumer loan uses words like creditor, lender, borrower, which don't necessarily apply to earned wage access. So 121507 is a replacement of 12304, which prohibits false or misleading or deceptive advertising. 121508 replaces the 12305 prohibition on discrimination, and 121509 replaces the cross-reference, which exempts a person from a penalty for certain actions made in good faith.
Do I have a motion? Senator Kramer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, where did we end up on the issue of a prohibition on stacking? I had heard it was in, then I heard it was out, then
I'm gonna have counsel explain that while I go to the bathroom.
okey-doke.
Go, Amber.
There was a lot of discussion about stacking, Senator Kramer, and we've talked to a lot of the providers that because these are no recourse loans, what normally happens if a consumer is using multiple providers on the same earned wages, they are going to have to pay that money back before using the provider again, but the providers don't go after or pursue those funds. So a person could just stop using that platform and the provider takes the loss in that case. So we found that it was more anti-stacking provisions are more of a protection for providers than they are really for the consumers. Consumers tend not to stack because they won't be able to use the platform of the provider again.
So.
It's in the bill. It's in the bill, right?
If somebody,
That is not in the bill directly. We haven't banned stacking in the bill per se, but it's just about the bill just is banning the tips.
so,
Because it's self-limiting. Gotcha.
Yes,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
thank you.
I'm interrupting you. Sorry.
So going back to the issue of stacking, if somebody has been allowed to borrow multiple times against their wages, and they want to, but I'm guessing not everybody's going to say, hey, I'm going to stiff the company and walk away from it. I'm guessing they're going to get buried in debt and want to be trying to pay off that debt. And, why would we not want to help protect them from getting buried under that debt in the first place, rather than say, all right, well, go ahead and stiff this vendor. Now you can't borrow from them anymore, but they may not, A, be aware they can stiff the vendor and just walk away from it, and they want to be able to avail themselves of this product, and we're kind of setting them up for just getting buried in debt. And so I'm just wondering, was there really this conclusion that somehow consumers were going to not benefit from stacking prohibitions?
I don't think there was any necessarily that they wouldn't benefit, but the providers may stop, maybe a chilling effect on providers in the state. Based on the stacking language that was proposed, we heard from providers that it was going to be very expensive, and the chair felt it was more important to get this bill out with the no tips as the governor has requested than to have a fight about stacking.
Because as we heard at the bill hearing, there was only one entity that allows, that allows for stacking. And the others all said they don't believe in stacking. They thought it was a bad policy, et cetera. Only one of them indicated that they felt otherwise. So it doesn't at least appear to me that most of the industry has a problem with our limiting stacking and saying no to stacking, because pretty much they all across the board, with the exception of one interest, said, yeah, we think stacking's bad and we don't do it.
I agree with you, Senator Kramer. They did all come in here and testify to that. And then we sent them a reprint with stacking language, and we have not stopped hearing calls from providers saying that this is going to ruin them in the state of Maryland. So I don't know, the testimony was not accurate, but.
Even the companies that testified that they didn't do it said it would be very expensive because of the data system was like $5 or $5.40.
It said $3 a transaction was what they were anticipating having to pay to check.
I will share with you that I have been told there's a vendor in this marketplace that does it for 20 cents. And that was just a sort of scare tactic, coming in and saying how expensive this would be, and it goes back to the consumers and it would cost them dearly. And I think it was more scare tactic than, more fiction than fact.
That vendor that provides the service also has an interest in us putting the stacking amendment in as well. So we're hearing from providers that don't want it because it's expensive, and we're hearing from someone that has the software who wants it because they're gonna benefit from it. So.
And I can appreciate that, but they're also indicating they can do it for, pennies on the dollar as opposed to $3. And
There's also an issue where if the consumer uses their whole paycheck and goes to another vendor and they don't ever pay that back, they do get banned from using it. If they don't, if there's no money there to cover it.
Yeah,
they can't use that
thank you.
vendor.
No, and we did. We just had that conversation, and my concern was there may be a lot of people that don't know that really is an option, and they want to do the right thing, but they get buried in the debt, and then they're constantly trying to pay it off.
So the idea is this isn't supposed to be debt. It's supposed to be wages you have already earned that they are paying you.
Yeah, but they're getting trapped in this cycle of then they're immediately borrowing on the next one and the next one. And look, I think the whole thing is just payday loans with lipstick put on it. And I've said that from Jump Street. Which is why I did not vote for the bill last year. I appreciate this bill is trying to clean up the mess from last year. I just was hoping maybe we could clean it up a little bit, make it even a little bit neater in our cleanup. So, but if it is the will of the committee that we limit the amount of cleanup, then, it's still better than what we have now.
Senator Reedy?
Just real quickly, the stacking thing, it's like we don't want to be, I don't care. I'm concerned about the tip issue, and I know it's a bugaboo here. I know everybody's concerned about the excessive request for tipping. At the same time, I'm wondering if we can't just make it a limit to where there's one ask and you're done. But why was it, we're just against it ever being asked for? Is that,
Reedy, can I ask you, why do you tip? When you're in a restaurant or a coffee shop, or why do you tip?
generally you tip for good service.
So this is an electronic transaction. Someone's pushing a button saying, I want part of my pay, and electronically it switches to them. What did that electronic transaction do to earn that tip?
The availability and accessibility of something I don't have to jump through hoops to get a
But there
loan.
was no person getting a tip. There was no person doing the work for that tip.
Well, everywhere we go, people ask for tips now. So, I
But
mean.
they do something for that tip.
No, I mean, if I check out if I get carry out food, there's a tip line. If I go to get coffee somewhere, there's a
If you
tip.
carry out food, somebody's making that food.
Somebody is providing money available basically for free for me for money. All right, I get it. I'm not gonna get anywhere with this, but I don't know. It just seems a little bit like if you don't like that vendor, go to another vendor that doesn't ask
Well,
for
I'm
tips.
back to the governor's letter, the letter that he didn't sign the bill because of the tip issue, and he wanted the tip, he wanted it fixed. So that's.
We all
what
have
the bill-
desires we want, but no, it's fine.
The whole bill was meant to fix the tip issue, and we had to clean up some language. That's all the bills.
There's a lot of amendments on this. Or you want to?
Senator Hershey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was the hearing where the two providers said that they have not even gotten their licenses yet to operate in the state of Maryland?
They're working on their licenses. You know, when you apply for a license, sometimes you have to respond to questions from the person issuing the license.
Right.
And there is some breakdown in communication.
Okay, because that's why I asked the question then, because he responded that they asked for over 1 million pieces of information, I think, and I don't know if he was exaggerating or
Well, a
if it
number
really.
of companies have gotten their license, so it must not be 1 million pieces.
Well, that's actually what I was going to ask. Did have some companies receive their
Yes, they have.
Yes.
their licenses and they are,
And the Department of Labor anticipates more receiving their licenses as they come to the table and provide the information
okay, so.
in the near future.
Okay, so if they were here, we wouldn't say it was overburdensome for them to get their license. It might just be that they missed an email or two and just didn't respond appropriately. Maybe, okay. I don't like.
Senator Val?
I just have one quick question about the tipping. There was only like one provider, right? I think that does tips, like, so the idea that this is gonna put a bunch of people out of business is, I mean, not very.
We only heard from one provider, Senator, that uses a tip model.
Okay, all right, thank you, Amber.
I want to go back to the governor's letter. The governor was going to veto the bill. He decided not to sign it, but he asked us to fix the tip issue. Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask for a hold on this. I'm not going to debate relitigating it next voting session, but I'd like to have a hold.
We are not going to debate it the next session. No other questions? Senate Bill 376.
Senate Bill 376 establishes the Digital Asset and Blockchain Technology Task Force staffed by the Office of Financial Regulation within Maryland Labor. The task force must conduct an analysis of and make recommendations regarding the expansion of blockchain technology and cryptocurrency in the state. By October 1, 2027, the task force must report its findings and recommendations to the General Assembly. You do have an amendment in front of you. It just adds three specific members and then increases the number of representatives of the financial services industry from 1 to 2. There was no opposition at the committee hearing.
And this is 2 members of the Senate and 2 members of the House.
Watson and Jennings. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do I have a motion? Is there a motion on Senate Bill 376? I'm sorry, I missed it. Who motioned?
Lamb, motion and I second.
Lamb and Reedy. Okay, all in favor of Senate Bill 376? All right, unanimous vote.
I believe the next bill is going,
We're going to hold it. We haven't The Anne Arundel County Senators can't figure it out.
Great. That means we're moving on to Senate Bill 415, which alters the time periods within which specified legal actions may be taken by the Securities Commissioner in the Office of the Attorney General or by a franchisee under the Maryland Franchise Registration and Disclosure Law. Among other provisions, the bill specifies rights of association for franchisees and requires the Securities Commissioner to establish a pilot program to expedite the review of franchise registration renewal applications as specified. By September 30th, 2031, the Commissioner must submit a report with certain information to the Senate Finance Committee and the House Economic Matters Committee. The bill's provisions related to the pilot program sunset September 30th, 2032. There are several amendments largely conforming the bill to its House cross-file as it's moving. Most of them are technical amendments, but there were 2 amendments proposed by the Maryland State Bar Association's franchise section and offered by the chair, which appear at page, sorry. Let's just go through them all. On page 2, we've struck from the bill that the sale of business opportunities is a field through which individuals use their right. Basically, we've struck the General Assembly findings and we're not changing those anymore. Under 14102, there are still General Assembly findings under 14202. On page 3, there's a strike of fair dealing. Again, that was just a clarity technical amendment that came over from the House. The section E on page 5 is no longer being added, which would have required the commissioner to require the franchisor do net equity amounts set forth in the registration exemption under COMAR. It's basically requiring them to comply with regulations. And then on page 7, they're extending the time from 3 to 4 years or 2 years after the date the franchise opens to the public to file an action under this section. And it's the earlier of those 4 years or the 2 years after opening. The next amendment adds an explicit right to association, which is included in the same section where a franchisor is also prohibited from preventing association. And then the final language changes are on page 9, which is just striking vague language to add more specificity for what must be included in the report.
I have a motion for Senate Bill 415 as amended. Senator Mouse? Thank you. Do I have a second? Senator Guile? All in favor of Senate Bill 415 as amended? Kelly Corman will be grateful. Thank you. Unanimous vote. Okay.
The next bill, Senate Bill 418, professional licensing portability for the members of the Foreign Service and their spouses. Finance is second on this. Triple E has already voted this favorably. There were amendments adopted in Triple E to make technical changes, and then there is some language added regarding discipline. It's an 85-page bill, but I have given you a 2-page reprint that just shows you the added language that relates to the disciplinary piece. And this was really to address some concerns from dentists as well as other health occupations groups regarding the boards being able to discipline somebody practicing here. But generally, the bill authorizes a foreign service member spouse who relocates to the state due to an assignment or detail in the state and holds a license issued by another jurisdiction to practice under the license for the duration of the assignment or detail that's in the state, if the individual provides specified documentation and satisfies other criteria. If a foreign service member or spouse is authorized to practice under the bill's provisions, the individual may practice only in the discipline and scope of practice allowed by the license in the other jurisdiction, and the licensing authority in the state may not require another license unless the individual seeks to practice outside of the authorized discipline of scope of practice.
That's a lot for just 2 pages. Can we have a motion for Senate Bill 418? Senator Gile, can I have a second? Senator Reedy, all in favor of Senate Bill 418? Unanimous vote. Okay. Senator Jackson and Hershey, interesting combination, Senate Bill 438, self-service storage facilities.
Senate Bill 438 represents a compromise or agreed upon language between the Consumer Protection Division and the Self-Storage Association. Generally, what the bill does is prohibits an occupant from using a self-storage facility beyond the term of rental agreement after the operator occupant has delivered in person, by email, or by verified mail written notice of the non-renewal of the rental agreement. The operator must provide the occupant with at least 30 days after delivery of the notice and at least until the end of the term of the rental agreement to remove all personal property from the self-service storage facility. The operator may dispose of any personal property remaining at the self-service storage facility after the time allotted has elapsed. At least 10 days before disposing of the personal property remaining, the operator must deliver, again in person, by email, or by verified mail, a notice of intent to dispose of the occupant's property. The bill also expands the definition of rental agreement to include electronic agreements. You have another reprint. Amendment 1 is technical, and Amendment 2 adds additional protections from removal of property when a rental agreement is not renewed. And that's language that you're gonna see added. Very similar language is added on page 2, and then on page 3 regarding notifying the occupant by email, and if there's not a confirmation, they must use then verified mail, and then there's an additional notice required if there's a non-renewal of the agreement by an operator at the bottom of page 3. There's no fiscal impact, and there's no opposition at the committee hearing.
And Senator Washington has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question. I know that there's some, well, let me ask a clear question. Is there local counties or cities that have their own rules or laws for storage units? And would this supersede that? Obviously, we're a state, so it probably would, right?
Well, the Maryland Self-Service Storage Act is current law. It was adopted in 1983 and applies to all rental agreements entered into or renewed after that date. So there's already state law that preempts any local regulation of the self-storage facilities because there's an act in place.
Okay, got it. Well, what if a locality wanted more stringent? Could they do that? And would this change that?
This bill would not change that. I am not aware if they are able to do that, but there's nothing in the bill that would change that.
Got it, okay.
In my 8 years on the county council, I never saw self-storage. Lots of towing bills, never saw a self-storage bill.
Did try to rein it in with some of the leases.
Senator, would you like to hold it to each county?
That'd be great.
That's fine. Senator Washington is one to hold. Yep. It's 438. Okay.
Senate Bill 528, we've heard, we've had on the voting list before last week. It was held by Senator Reedy. There have been no changes since that time. I don't know if Senator Reedy, if you had any questions or if you got answers that you were looking for.
Well, the answer is no. We've been working on some other issues. I think one question I do have is what constitutes loud. So is it that I just think it's important to be sure we can enforce things and to be sure it's clear what it is. What constitutes loud?
It would have to be a higher volume than the regular programming. So if the advertising is at a higher volume without you changing your volume at home, the commercial comes on and it's at a higher volume than what you've been watching the TV at, that would be loud.
Yes, that makes sense, but how do we really, some commercials, somebody comes on and they're yelling, it sounds louder. Some commercials, I'm just, like, how's this enforced? Somebody records it, I guess somebody could record it and show it to who, the Attorney General?
Yes, the Consumer Protection Division, would make a complaint there.
I find those, we watch a lot of streaming TV in my house. I know it's annoying every once in a while. It doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes you'll have. Well, I already held it once. I'm not holding it. Sorry. Senator Hershey has a question.
I was going to say, we've added so many exemptions from this, I'm not sure who it actually applies to anymore.
So
Until we find that out, could I hold it? Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay. Senate Bill 662.
Senate Bill 662 is the Financial Institutions Payment of Stablecoin Services Establishment and Regulation. It establishes a regulatory framework for payment stablecoin service institutions and state issuers in accordance with the Federal Genius Act of 2025 and requires providers of stablecoin-related services in the state to be certified by the Office of Financial Regulation within the Maryland Department of Labor. The bill also lowers the examination fee for a new commercial bank charter from $15,000 to $7,000. There are no amendments, there's no fiscal impact, and there was no opposition at the committee hearing. And we are, as a state, up against a time deadline to establish this in state law.
Can I have a motion for Senate Bill 662, please? Senator Gile motion, who's second? Second. Senator Reedy second. All in favor of Senate Bill 662? Okay, unanimous vote. Okay.
Senate Bill 741, if you remember last year, the committee passed the virtual currency kiosk law. This bill is clarifying that law by explicitly stating that a device may not be a virtual currency kiosk and an ATM. It must be one or the other. The bill also is expanding the definition of a virtual currency kiosk operator to include a person that installs or operates software that enables a standalone automated device to provide virtual currency services in the state. Just by way of background, Madam Chair has received information from a number of people in the industry indicating that there were some interpretational issues with this law where people were thinking it did not apply to them because they were either operating both an ATM and a virtual currency kiosk, or they were only operating software and not operating the device. So this is just, bill is intended to close those loopholes. There are no amendments, there's no fiscal impact, and there is no opposition at the committee hearing.
And the Office of Financial Regulation wanted the bill. Can I have a motion, please, on 741? I'm going to move favorable. Can I get a second? Second. Thank you, Senator Jackson. Okay. All in favor of Senate Bill 741? Unanimous vote. Thank you.
The next bill on the list is Senate Bill 782, I believe. Senator Jackson. You holding it? Can you?
Senator
Yeah.
Jackson?
Hold that bill.
Hold 782. Okay. How about 783?
I think we can go with this one. So Senate Bill 783 makes a vote to approve a merger by members of a surviving credit union optional instead of mandatory as under current law. It makes conforming changes in order to align Maryland law with federal standards. There are no amendments.
Have a Senator Reedy.
No
Who's gonna
fiscal
second?
impact.
Senator Jackson. All in favor of Senate Bill 783? Unanimous vote. Thank you. Okay.
Senate Bill 784 is a clarifying and corrective measure that repeals a provision of law erroneously enacted during the 2025 session related to exempting a certain person who acquires a mortgage from licensure. Basically, the General Assembly passed two versions of the bill. The governor signed both, and they both took effect, even though they, because they weren't directly in conflict, but they were not what was intended to take effect. So this just corrects that issue. There are no amendments, no fiscal impact, and there's no opposition at the committee hearing. The Office of Financial Regulation also did want this change made as well.
I'm going to move favorable. Do I have a second? Senator Dial. Okay. And Senate Bill 784, all in favor of this cleanup bill? Thank you. Unanimous vote.
All right,
Last
the
one.
final bill, Senate Bill 893, as amended.
As amended, Madam Chair.
All in favor of Senate Bill 893?
And
Take roll call, please.
We took the wages out of the bill, if that helps anyone.
Yeah, I just don't understand why we tell a merchant that they may do something. I mean, couldn't they do that without the bill?
not legally.
They may do it if they want. I don't know, I don't like it.
Sure.
Just,
Senate Bill 893 is an emergency bill that authorizes a merchant to round certain cash transactions and the amount of change due to a customer up or down to the nearest cent divisible by 5 due to the fact that pennies are no longer being used. So up to 5, so you can have a nickel. The bill preempts any existing regulations, rules, and ordinances. There are two amendments. The first is technical and clarifying. The second strikes the labor and wage provisions from the bill.
Favorable.
Yes, I mean, even without the elimination of the pennies, when you have to divide percentages of different figures in business today, you typically come out with a figure that would be, say, $10.73, to be 10.735894. So you already, with even having pennies, you still have to do this. It just basically takes what's already in practice and applies it, right?
And this makes sure that it's being applied evenly because of the way the rounding is specified in the bill.
Right. I just want to make sure it's not.
Doesn't do anything else.
I do now that I understand it a little more
Let's do a
clearly.
roll call.
Thank you.
Tammy, last bill.
Okay. Senate Bill 893, favorable with amendment. Vice Chair Hayes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Kramer.
Yes.
Senator Reedy.
I'll stick with my leader and say no.
No. Senator Mounts. Yes. Senator Jackson.
Thinking for himself.
Yes.
over
Senator
there.
Washington. Yes. Senator Guile. Yes. Senator Lamb. Yes. Senator Hershey.
completely unnecessary.
No. Madam Chair.
He wasn't
Yes.
even here for the bill hearing.
9-2,
Okay,
the
let
bill.
me ask you, go ahead, Senator. Change your vote. Okay, sure, change your vote. Who you want to change? Does it change the outcome? No. Okay. 396? No. No, it's just 390. Okay, I don't know which one it is.
Oh, it was the comical alcohol.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry, Senator Washington, you'd like,
That would change the outcome.